All right, good evening, everybody. We're going to start with the webinar. How is everyone? I hope everyone is blessed. Thank you for joining me tonight on the Wealthy Trustee webinar. Hold on, I'm going to mute some people. So we're going to dive right in. Tonight, you're going to be learning about what is a trust, how to set up a trust, and different investments that you guys can do. Hold on, mute. There we go. Perfect. All right. And then you guys can ask questions either in between or at the end, whatever questions that you guys might have. So we're going to dive right in. I hope everyone is well. Let's see here. And if you guys could stay on mute during the presentation, I would really appreciate that because the noise is distracting. Okay. All right, so let's dive right in. Let's get this out the way. All right, so this is the Wealthy Trustee webinar. So I am going to be teaching you guys how to build wealth the right way, right? A lot of us, we are building generational wealth, right? And we got a lot of cash flow coming in, but we don't think about how we're going to transfer the wealth, right? So tonight I'm going to give you some strategies and the blueprint on how you guys can actually transfer the wealth that you guys are creating, okay? So meet your instructor. My name is Christina Ivette. I am a passive income strategist. I have helped hundreds of people set up multiple streams of income using the blueprint that I'm going to show you guys tonight. Okay. I have been a trustee since 2015. If you are off of mute, please mute. So I have been a trustee since 2015. And the reason that I got a trust or became a trustee is because I actually started investing in real estate. So my background is in nursing. I was actually a registered nurse. Sorry, hold on. I got to mute some people there. So I was actually a registered nurse for 8 years, and nursing, you know, it was nice, but it kept me away from my family, and I'm a mother of 3. So I realized that I was actually spending more time in the hospital with my coworkers than, you know, home with my kids. So I knew that I had to invest, and I started a real estate investment company. And at that point I had a mentor, and my mentor taught me that I need to put that real estate property into a trust. And the reason being is because that property, it was a flip, right? So I was buying it, I was going to renovate it and put it back on the market. And so anything could have happened, especially if I only had it in an LLC, right? A contractor could have got injured, somebody could have stepped on a nail. There's just so many endless possibilities when you're doing construction and renovation on, you know, in real estate in these old homes. So I needed to protect myself, my money, you know, and my business. And so I put that property under a trust, and I have been protected ever since. So I have been a trustee ever since 2015 and just been operating with several different structures. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you an example of what my structure looks like, okay? So this is the Secretary of State's website. So I'm located in Florida. I'm not sure where you guys are located, but this is the Secretary of State's website. So you know that everything is public records on the Secretary of State's website, right? So this is Elite Homes Enterprise LLC. And if you scroll down, you see that the authorized member of this LLC is Urban Holdings, Inc. So that's another entity, right? So now let's look up that entity, okay? So the LLC is not owned by a person, but owned by a corporation. So let's look up this corporation, Urban Holdings, right? So we go to Urban Holdings and then we go down to where it says CEO. So the chief operating executive officer of this S corporation is Ways to Wealth. So what do you think Ways to Wealth is? That is not a human being, right? That is actually an entity, and the entity is a trust, right? So the LLC is owned by an S Corp, and the S Corp is owned by a trust, okay? So I just wanted to briefly show you what the beginnings of my multi-level structure is, okay? And you guys also need to be structured this way because that is how you're going to be protected out here from creditors, from lawsuits, from divorces, from liens, from all kind of things, okay? So the objective for tonight is for you to learn what is a trust, for you to learn the contributors in this trust contract, for you to learn how to operate a trust, tax strategies that you can use, wealth strategies so that you could build wealth faster, and how to protect your assets, okay? So how do these companies pay no taxes? You got Amazon, you got Berkshire Hathaway, you got Trump, right? These are all billion-dollar organizations. So how is it that these organizations, or, you know, the people behind it that are running these organizations, how is it that they pay little to no taxes, right? They have actually come out in public saying that they pay less taxes than their secretary. So how is it that a billionaire pays less taxes than his secretary, and his secretary is probably only making like $100,000 a year? And it's because they're structured the right way, and it's because they actually incorporate a trust entity within their structure, right? So if these big organizations are using trust, then you also need to be using trust, especially if your intentions are to, one, leave a legacy, and to two, actually generate passive income and generate generational wealth, right? So with that being said, we have the Federal Reserve note, right? The US dollar. And it says the United States of America. Now, my question to you is, do you see the word trust on the dollar bill? And you could come off of mute. I would like for somebody to come off of mute and answer that question if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Does anybody see the word trust?
It says we're in God we trust.
In God we trust, exactly. So a lot of people think that that's just a statement, but in fact it's not. So in God we trust is actually the name of a trust entity, okay? The United States is a corporation, and they actually incorporate a trust within their structure as well, okay? So if the United States of America is using trust, then you also should be using trust, okay? So now, if you guys are here in the United States, right, if you were issued a birth certificate, a social security, anything of that nature, then you too already have a trust, because the United States those are actual contracts, right? And contract law is the highest form of law. So with that being said, you were already issued a trust. They created a Sister-Q trust under your name and use that instrument, right? The birth certificate, the social security, as a contract, right? And they binded you into this contract, and then they tied it to an insurance policy, right? They funded that insurance policy. And so now that's how you're able to tap into, you know, all these government benefits and programs like free education, free healthcare, things of that nature, right? Because they already have, one, a trust under you as an entity, and two, it's insured by an insurance policy, okay? So like I said, if the United States is using a trust, don't you think that you also should be using a trust, right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So let's move on, right? So right now we're going through an economic crisis, right? Or not now, but I guess in the near future, right? So you have to understand that with this economic crisis, you have to, safeguard your wealth, right? You have to safeguard your wealth. And so digital currency is equivalent to the government having more control over you, over your money, over, your income, things of that nature. So you need to be careful with that because their, agenda or initiative is for you to be dependent on the government, right? They want you to be dependent on them for food, for gas, for housing, for money, things of that nature. So in order for you to, to be independent, you should be utilizing a trust, having private land where that land is under a trust, growing your own food, building your own personal economy so that you don't have to depend or be subject to, whatever situation that they want to put us in because of because of the economy. Okay. So we're going to talk about, things that you can do in order to protect your wealth, especially when this shift in the US dollar happens. So what is a trust entity, right? A trust entity is actually considered a human person, is looked at as a human person. So every single thing that you can do as a human, a trust can do too, except for give birth, right? So you have to know and understand that. So if you could buy a car, a trust could buy a car. If you could take out a mortgage, a trust can take out a mortgage. If you could build credit, a trust can build credit. If you could write a book, a trust can write a book. So you have to be mindful of that, right? And know that there's almost no limitations when it comes to this type of entity. That's why this type of entity is so powerful, okay? If you guys are off of mute, can you please mute because there's some background noise. All right, so now a trust, what is it? It is actually a contract, okay? So it's a contract, it falls under contract law. Trust law falls under contract law. So there's a lot of different parties involved, which we're going to go over, right? You have a grantor, or you have a beneficiary, you have a trustee, right? Those are typically the individuals or parties involved in a trust. So what is also included in a trust, right? You have a trust indenture, right? And so what does the word indenture mean? It means agreement. Agreement falls under contract, right? So you have several different types of trust, right? You have implied trust and express trust. Implied trust is actually an oral trust. I do not recommend anybody go out here and create an oral trust, right? It needs to be in writing. And so that's why we say express trust. It's in writing, it's in black and white, and you can't say that, XYZ, these rules and regulations are not within the trust, okay? So that is super important for you to have that indenture. Then you have a declaration of trust, right? Which tells you the purpose. So the main difference between a trust and an estate is that a trust has a purpose and an estate doesn't. It just pretty much tells you here are the assets, here is who's going to inherit them, right? But a trust has a purpose. And the reason that the trust is created by the creator or the grantor is for the benefit of someone else. Okay, so it's super important. With a trust, you have someone to operate the trust, which is a trustee, right? They operate and control all the assets in a trust. So let's dive into the different parties involved in this contract, okay? So in a trust, you have a grantor. Another name for grantor is settlor. Another name for settlor is trustor. So you can use all three of those names interchangeably however you want, okay? So that particular party is the creator of the trust, okay? That's the person who actually creates the trust and actually puts assets into the trust for the benefit of somebody else, okay? For the beneficiaries. Then you have trustee, okay? There's no other name for trustee, okay? So with the trustee, that is the owner of the trust, right? They are the controllers of the trust. They are the parties that are acting in a fiduciary capacity to actually carry out all the rules, regulations, and bylaws within the trust. And they do it for the benefit of somebody else, which is the beneficiaries, okay? So then you have the beneficiaries. The beneficiaries are the inheritors of the trust, right? So they are the individuals that are actually going to inherit everything that is within the trust once the trust is dissolved, right? So one thing about a trust is that it actually dies, right? So a trust, wait, what happened here? Okay, so a trust actually has a termination date, right? Compared to an LLC or an S corporation or things of that nature, right? The LLC, it doesn't have an end date. You don't put that in your operating agreement or anything that the LLC is only going to run for 5 years, right? It just continues on, for however long you continue to pay like your annual fees. With a trust, within the contract, you have a termination date. So you could run it for however long you want, right? So the minimum time that we recommend is 7 years, and the maximum time is 100 years. So anywhere between that, you can actually put that your trust is going to operate for that long. So if you want 30 years, 40 years, up to you, however long you think that you want it to exist, right? But if it's a family trust and you are out here building generational wealth and you want to put that thing for 100 years and make sure that it actually gets renewed, right? It's important that you don't let your trust expire
Guys,
because
get this problem done. When I come out of the bathroom, y'all have to get to bed.
can
So
you
let the
mute? Hold on, somebody's off of mute. Okay, so as far as the termination date, it's important that you do not let your trust dissolve, right? Because once it's dissolved, that's it. All of the assets need to be like deeded over or transferred to the beneficiaries at that point. So if you are building generational wealth, then you want to make sure that your successor trustee or whoever's taking over after you, that they renew that contract, right? That they renew your trust when it is due to expire, okay? So you have to renew it anywhere between 30 to 60 days before the expiration date. All right. So as far as these appointed duties, right, the grantor, their appointed duty is to appoint the first trustee, right, to transfer assets into the trust and basically to walk away from the trust if you have an irrevocable trust, right? If you have an irrevocable trust, the grantor has no power. They just create the trust and then walk away. As far as the trustee, they have all the power, all the control. So if you're creating an irrevocable trust, then the position that you want to be in is the trustee. So the trustee is actually going to appoint their successor, right? Just in case you expire, if you become incapacitated, sick, anything like that, you need to make sure that you have someone ready to go to take over after you because the trust needs to continue to operate, okay? So you're going to list someone as your trustee, and then that individual is going to take over once you're done, once you either step down or resign, okay? So the trustee manages the day-to-day operations of the trust, controls all the assets, and controls all the trust funds, right? So they are involved with investments, right? You have to actually invest the trust funds so that the money keeps growing and it doesn't, dissipate, okay? So those are some of the duties and responsibilities of the trustee. Then you have a beneficiary, right? The beneficiaries, they don't have no control, right? And if they do have any type of control, then it's not considered a trust, okay? So you need to be mindful that your trust indenture does not give any type of control to the beneficiaries, okay? So the beneficiaries, they have to understand that they are benefiting from the trust. So their main thing is that they need to know the contents of the trust. They need to understand the trust, and they also need to know the powers of the trustee, because the trustee is the one who is, doing all of these types of investments for them. So they need to know what their duties are. So let's just say that you have a situation where a trustee is like stealing from the trust, right? Then the protector comes into play, right? So you are going to want to appoint a protector, but you're not going to want to appoint a protector when you are the trustee, because you don't need anybody checking over you, right? The protector, what their duty is to watch the trustee, to make sure that the trustee is operating legally, lawfully, and in their fiduciary capacity. Can you mute, please? So if the trustee is not doing what they're supposed to be doing and not operating the trust, the way they're supposed to, then that's when the protector comes into play, because they are protecting the beneficiary and making sure that the trustee is doing, doing everything correctly and operating the trust correctly. Okay. So that's important. So if you're the trustee now and you're going to be the trustee for the next 10 years, after your 10-year, duty or term, you're going to want to appoint a protector to make sure that that protector is, protecting the beneficiary and watching over your successor, okay? So there are several different types of trust, right? You got irrevocable trust, you got revocable trust, you got land trust, charitable trust, living trust, testamentary trust. There's so many types of trust. There's hundreds of types of trust, okay? So you have to determine which trust is best for you. There's so every single type of trust is either revocable or irrevocable, okay? So with that being said, revocable means that the trust can be altered, right? Amended. It could be revoked, meaning that you could dissolve it. And whatever assets you put into the trust, you can pull them out, take them out. And that is for the grantor, right? All of these terms, revocable and irrevocable, only apply to the grantor because the grantor is the creator, okay? So if the grantor wants the opportunity to actually take back their house, then they're going to get a revocable trust, right? A revocable trust is because it can be amended, it is not going to hold up in court compared to an irrevocable trust, right? An irrevocable trust cannot be amended, and you cannot, once the grantor puts property into the trust, they cannot take it back, and it can't be dissolved, right? That's only for the grantor. So a lot of people are confused out here, and they are signing themselves up for revocable trust, but they don't know that they can get an irrevocable trust. They just cannot be the grantor, right? So that's what we recommend. We recommend that you, one, get a bulletproof trust, which is an irrevocable trust. That is the only type of trust that's going to protect you from liens, from judgments, from creditors, from anyone who's trying to pretty much come after the trust, okay? So that's the type of trust that you want, and you are the trustee. So that means that if you put a house into the trust, you can take it back. If you decide that you want to make any type of amendments or changes to the trust, you can do that, right? So that the fact that it's irrevocable doesn't apply to you as long as you are the trustee and not the grantor, okay? So that's very important to understand. So how do you create a trust, right? So the first thing you need to do is you need to determine what type of trust you want to create, okay? Do you want to create an irrevocable or revocable trust, right? Once you decide that, then you are going to figure out a trust name, right? So when it comes to naming your trust, you can name your trust anything that you want, okay? You can name your trust after yourself, but it's not advisable because you have to understand that with a trust, you're operating privately. You're no longer, in the public, and your trust is not a part of or tied to the public records. So you don't want to name the trust after yourself. That's a dead giveaway, okay? So you can name it anything. So let's just say that you had a business trust. You could also use abbreviations like LLC, like corp, co, company. You can use all of those names in your business trust name, okay? So that your business trust, it actually appears as a company out there, doing business dealings out in the public, but it's actually a trust and it looks like a corp. It looks like a LLC, right? So just keep in mind that you can actually use those things. You do not have to have the name trust in your trust name, okay? So it doesn't have to end with the word trust or have trust anywhere in the contents of that name. I showed you the name of one of my many trusts, right? In the beginning of the call. It's called Ways to Wealth. There's no indication that that is a trust, and the word trust is nowhere in that name. Okay, so that actually puts you in a good position because, like I said, you are private, so they're not going to even know what type of entity it is, right? Like an LLC or an Inc., where you know what type of entity it is, okay? So once you determine the name of your trust, you're going to appoint the parties. So if you are creating an irrevocable trust, then you're going to actually appoint a creator on paper, right? So it could be anybody. It could be your next of kin. It could be a sibling, a parent. It could be, it could be a lawyer, an accountant, anybody that you want. You're going to appoint them as your grantor, okay? Just make sure that this person can actually notarize the trust documents with you, okay? And the reason why you're doing that is because you just have to understand that the grantor has no power. So do not worry and think that you're, appointing your brother and now he has power or control over your trust, because that is not the fact. The grantors have no power. And if it's found that the grantor has any type of influence over the trustee in this type of trust, then the trustee needs to be replaced, okay? So then you're going to appoint yourself as the trustee. You're going to appoint your beneficiaries. Who are your beneficiaries? Those are your children, right? Those are your siblings, your parents, whoever you want to inherit your properties, right? And your assets, right? You just have to think, if I were to die tomorrow, who do I want to have all the cash in my bank account? You pick that person. Then your successor, like I said, you have to understand that this trust is going to outlive you. You are creating generational wealth. So you have to appoint someone to take over after you. So that could be your child. That could be a beneficiary, right? A child. Later on, they will move on to becoming a trustee. So they can be the trustee and the beneficiary, but they cannot only be the only beneficiary. There has to be other beneficiaries, okay? After you're done appointing all of these people, then you are going to create the trust agreement, right? So you're going to create the establishment date, right? So if you're creating the trust today, today's the establishment date, right? Whatever rules and regulations, like if you want the beneficiaries to be 18 before they receive any distributions, you can put that in there. If you want them to have a college degree, you can put that in there. Whatever it is that you want, right? So once you create the trust agreement, the trust needs to be legalized. And the way that it becomes legalized is by you getting it notarized. So it needs to be notarized by the grantor and the trustee. Once it's notarized, it's completely legal and you can start operating the trust, okay? So once you start operating the trust, the first thing that you want to do is you want to open up a trust bank account, right? You always hear that term, trust funds, trust funds. Well, that's what that is. So you are going to open up a bank account specifically for the trust and you're going to deposit trust funds in there, okay? So how do you open up the bank account? You can choose and decide if you want to apply for an EIN with the IRS, right? Just know that you are going to be, disclosing your information as the trustee, right? Some people, they are very particular about being private, and so they actually decide to elect a third party to do the EIN application for them so that they don't have to disclose who they are, okay? So you're going to apply for an EIN. And then at that point in time, you can go and open up a bank account with, any kind of bank. You can do Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Chase, PNC, whoever you want. We have challenges in this area. The reason being is because every single bank is different. And so some of these bankers, they do not know what a trust is. They've never heard of a trust. Or if they've seen it, they really don't know how to open up a bank account for a trust. And so they're going to test you and they're going to ask you for your trust. You have to understand that it's your responsibility to protect your trust, which means that you can't show your trust to nobody. Nobody. So if the banker is asking for your trust, you kindly decline and you do two things, right? Because what they're going to do is they're going to ask you for the trust and tell you that they need to refer it or send it to their legal department, which, it might be the case. But you're going to do two things. You're either going to, you're going to go to another bank that actually doesn't require for you to disclose your trust documents, or you're going to contact their legal department and let them know that they are, breaching your rights and that they don't need to see your trust, okay? All they need is the meeting minutes for your trust to know that you actually have a trust. Or some of these banks will actually have you fill out a certificate of trust, right? Which pretty much says that you are the authorized signer and the trustee, and you're able to, open up this trust. Because if they don't see the trust, how do they know that it exists, right? So that's why that certificate of trust is handy, because it's just a one-page, document saying that you're the trustee, but no one is ever going to see your 40-50 page trust, okay? So once you open up your trust bank account, then you're going to deposit that startup capital that you need for your trust. So let's just say that you'll deposit $1,000. At that point in time, your trust is now going to write a promissory note from the trust to you in your personal name that they took a loan from you and that they're going to pay you back 12 months plus interest, okay? So that initial capital is actually a loan and you're going to be paid back by the trust. So as the trustee, you can loan money to the trust and you can receive loans from the trust, okay? So once you are done with the bank, you got your bank account, you got your login, all that other stuff. Now it's time to transfer your assets. That is one of the most important things in this entire setup equation, right? And this is the part that a lot of people, they fail, right? Because they just do not transfer their assets, right? You have to understand the entire reason why you actually created this trust is to protect your assets, right? I've heard of people who actually there was a lady who was on a call and she said that her father had an irrevocable trust and he passed away, and she thought that the house was under the irrevocable trust, and when she went down to the county she found out it was still in his personal name and she had to go to probate, and she was devastated. And so I hear stories like this all the time, right? Where people, they have trust. They've been having their trust for 3, 4, 5 years and have never operated the trust, never transferred assets, and it's pretty much just collecting dust. You have like a stack of papers and it's just collecting dust. Why? Because you wasn't trained properly on how to operate a trust, okay? So keep that in mind, right? So what does operating the trust look like? Well, like I said, a trust can do anything that you can do, right? So what is a trust going to do? A trust is going to take out, policies on their beneficiaries. A trust is going to buy real estate, sell real estate, rent real estate, right? A trust is going to, it can buy and sell, sell their vehicle, right? Do any type of investments, right? Crypto is big, right? And so you can actually have, with your brokerage, you can have the brokerage open up an account under your trust, and then you're not subject to those, capital gains. So a trust can do anything, in those day-to-day things that you're doing to manage the properties that are in the trust, though, that is you actually operating the trust, okay? So just know that there's no limitations. Whatever you can do as a person, human, your trust can do as well. And a lot of people in the trust community, they actually just do away with their person, right? So they don't even put anything in their personal name anymore, and they don't use their social security anymore. Everything is with the trust. I was actually telling a young lady earlier today, I said, Christina, Ivette, she's gonna die broke. She's going to die with no money in her bank account, with no assets, nothing. Why? Because everything is going to be in the trust. And Christina is the one who's going to be subject to death tax, inheritance tax, and death tax, inheritance tax, and estate tax, right? So, like I said, broke. So let's move on. Asset protection. Asset protection is the number one reason why you want to use a trust, and you are going to be 100% private as long as you decide, right? Because if somebody wants to know like the name of your trust, the address, all of these things, you have to disclose it to them, right? So it's up to you to keep that trust private at all costs, okay? So now let's talk about asset protection, because it's important. And a trust can actually protect you from all these things, right? It can protect you from bankruptcy, from heavy taxation, from divorce, probate, lawsuits, foreclosures, and, really, really, it's such a powerful tool, right? So let's just dive in. So heavy taxation is one of the major benefits of a trust. So when you die, like I said, you are subject to estate tax, inheritance tax, and death tax, right? With whatever assets that are in the trust, because it's a trust and it's not a human person, that trust is not subject to any of those taxes, right? So you have to understand, if you as an individual, if you have $100,000 in your bank account and you die tomorrow, the IRS is gonna take out all that taxes before that money is given to your kids, right? And then whatever other debtors you have, that's gonna come out too. So it's important that you set up yourself, accordingly. So with these different types of trusts, right, you can actually be exempt from paying property taxes, be exempt from paying sales taxes, state taxes, and federal taxes, right? The name of that trust is a ministry trust, and I'll go over it in just a little bit. And so heavy taxation can actually save you, right? So let's just say that you have a ministry trust. That ministry trust, you want it to be the owner of your home. And then all you have to do is go down to the county assessor's office where they assess the value of your land or your property, and then they make you pay taxes, and let them know that you are exempt from paying taxes because that property is owned by a tax exempt trust. Okay. So that's one way, right? Like me, my home, my property taxes were $7,000 a year. Okay, so just imagine saving $7,000 per year, and now you can move that money somewhere else. You could put it into crypto, stocks, your insurance policy, right? You don't have to give it to the county anymore. Okay, as well as income taxes, right? So, for example, Steph Curry, right? I always talk about Steph Curry because I think that he's highly intelligent, but he's just not structured right. So, Steph Curry, one of the, famous basketball players, he had a contract for $250 million, right? And you know that it's public records. So, he actually paid over $140 million in taxes, in income taxes. That money could have been put into, into real estate. That money could have been, put into other different investments that could have stayed within his family, that could have gone to his kids. But instead, it went to the IRS because he didn't have his affairs in order, because he didn't use a trust within his structure to save on taxes. Okay, so that's what I mean by not being subject to heavy taxation, right? You don't have to pay a state tax, death tax, inheritance tax, federal taxes, state taxes. There's just so much. Let's talk about probate. So you have a property, you have a house, right now, and that house is in your name, right? Mr. and Mrs. Smith. If you die tomorrow, this is a question that I'm asking you. If you die tomorrow, how is that house that's in your personal name going to be transferred to your child's name? Do you think that that just happens magically? It does not. So that means that your child is going to have to go through probate in order to get your house. So you are forcing your child to go get a lawyer and go have a judge that doesn't even know you make the decision on whether that property is going to be deeded from your name to their name, right? So the probate process is an ugly process, and if you are, forcing your family to go through this process, then you're doing them a disservice, right? The only way that you are going to avoid probate is by having a trust. A trust is the only way for you to avoid probate. Why? Because there is no transfer. Okay, so that house that was in your personal name, you deeded it over. You did a quit claim deed from Mr. and Mrs. Smith to the trust. You went down to the clerk of courts, you filed it, they updated the public records, and now it's owned by the trust. And the beneficiaries of that trust are your children. So if you die tomorrow, there's no transfer because the house is already owned by the trust and your children are the beneficiaries. So when the trust dissolves, the house goes straight to them. But in the meantime, they're going to benefit from that house because the trustee is, operating and controlling that asset. Okay. So probate is, when it comes to probate, you have to understand that the state, right? So if you don't have your affairs in order, and you pass away, the state is going to issue the estate. Okay. Can you mute? Hold on. Okay, so if you, like I said, if you expire and you don't have your affairs in order, then the state, whatever state you live in, they are going to issue you an estate. It's an estate of Mr. and Mrs. Smith, right? And then it's going to have to go to court. You're going to have to hire a lawyer, right? So a lawyer needs to represent your estate, but your estate is going to actually have to pay all the debt. So if you leave student loan debt, then that debt is going to have to come out of your estate, right? If you have any vehicles with debt, then it's going to have to come out of that estate. Any credit cards is going to come out of that estate, right? Everything's going to come out of that estate, plus the court fees, plus the lawyer fees. Okay, so then whatever is left over is what your inheritors, your children, that's what they get. So you want to avoid probate at all costs, and there's only one way to do it. And it's by having a trust, and that is going to be your transfer of wealth. Let's talk about divorce, right? Because people change. So let's just say that you, two things, right? Two scenarios. The first scenario is you have been, married for 5 years, and you just start picking up real estate using a trust, and you didn't tell your significant other about it, or maybe you did. It doesn't matter if they know or if they don't know, but you are married, legally married, you have a trust. Your spouse doesn't have any type of connection to that trust. You are the trustee of that trust, right? You start picking up property. So now you got 10 properties with that trust. 5 years later, your spouse wants to divorce you. Every single property or asset that's in that trust is not subject to your divorce. Your divorce is between husband and wife and whatever personal assets y'all have, right, in your personal name. So even if you have a property that's in your personal name, but your wife is not on it, that is still going to be included in your divorce, right? But a trust is a separate entity from you and from your spouse. So every single asset, all the money, everything that's in that trust is not going to be included in your divorce. It's illegal. It can't, right? It has nothing to do with your divorce. So that can actually protect you, right? So that's going to protect you from your divorce. Let's talk about lawsuits, right? Let's just say that you have, a real estate property and you have a tenant in there and there was like a slip and fall, right? So now that property, let's just say that you have that property under a LLC, right? So LLC stands for limited liability company, and it sounds exactly like what it is, limited, right? So if that house is under an LLC and it gets sued, then they're going to take whatever assets are in the LLC. But if that doesn't suffice, then the judge is going to pierce the corporate veil and actually go after the owner of the LLC. So if you are the owner of the LLC, then you are in a liable situation, right? Because once they pierce the corporate veil, they're going to go after you personally. So that means that they are going to be seizing your bank accounts, whatever cash you have in there, and seizing your assets to fulfill that judgment, okay? So now let's just say that the house is under a trust, or the LLC is owned by a trust. At that point in time, it depends on the type of trust that you have, right? Because a living trust is really not going to hold up. A revocable trust is really not going to hold up. If you have an irrevocable trust, then it's going to protect you against that lawsuit. So with that lawsuit, you as the trustee, you have no liability. So if they're going after the trust, then they're only going to get what's in the trust. So if you only have $5,000 in the trust bank account, then that's it. You have to understand that trust can get sued, okay? And it just depends on jurisdiction as well. So with that being said, if the trust is sued and you're the trustee, they can't come after you personally, and vice versa. If you're sued personally, they can't come after the trust, okay? So that puts you in a situation where the trust has full liability and you have no liability. That's the type of structure that you want to be operating with versus an LLC where you have limited liability, okay? So that's how it could protect you against lawsuits. So let's talk about the wealth building formula. So we just talked about, you know, the LLC, right? So like I said, the LLC is, if you guys are already in business, then you already most likely are operating with a limited liability company. So what you can do is you can actually create a business trust, and instead of you operating as the authorized member of that LLC, you can now remove yourself as the owner and you can put the business trust as the owner. That business trust is now going to be acting as your holding company, right? It's going to be your holding company or your parent corporation or your umbrella company, right? So with that being said, you want that first layer of protection. That is very, very, very important, especially if you're out here doing business. Like here in the United States is just a sue-friendly place, right? So everybody and anybody wants to sue you and they're ready to do it, okay? So you're going to remove yourself as the owner. And the way you do that is you go down to the Secretary of State's website and you do an amendment of your articles of incorporation and you remove yourself as the owner and you add a new owner, which is the business trust, okay? So now the business trust is going to own your LLC. And if you have multiple LLCs, then your business trust will own all of those LLCs, okay? And it also depends on the type of business it is too. If it's a high liability business, like, you know, like real estate, like trucking, things of that nature, then you might want to just have one business trust per that one LLC and then have the others, you know, separate, right? So that first layer of protection, like I said, is your business trust, okay? That's going to protect you from any type of lawsuits when it comes to your business, okay? And even if, let's just say that you lose the lawsuit, right? With the business trust, one, you do not want to have any assets in this business trust because the business trust is out here conducting business. You have to, you know, deal with the public and things of that nature. So you want to keep the bare minimum in your business trust bank account, right? Whatever you need in order to operate that business trust or that LLC, keep that in the bank account. And then you transfer the rest of those funds to your private family trust. Another name for it is your asset holding trust that holds all your asset, right? So that income that you're generating from your business, that's assets, right? If your business made $1 million, are you really going to keep $1 million in the business trust bank account? No, you're going to keep $10,000 in there, and that 100,000 is going to go into the private family trust, which is where you hold your assets, right? Because in the event that that business trust is sued and loses the judgment, right, for whatever reason, which most likely it would be poor operation of the trust, then at that point in time, you could just bankrupt that trust and move on to the next trust, right? You have to understand you can operate multiple trusts. You can be the trustee of multiple trusts. There is no limit. So if you have a problem or a blemish or a situation with one trust, you bankrupt that trust and move on to the next one, okay? So that is what would be that situation, okay? You want to hold limited assets in there. So now the beneficiary of your business trust is going to be your private family trust. So all the income from your LLC is going to flow into, you know, into the owner, right? So it's going to go to the business trust, right? And then once it's in the business trust, there's two things. You can either keep the money in the business trust bank account, and that is not going to trigger a taxable event, meaning that as long as you don't take it out and start, spending or doing whatever you need to do with it, then at that point you don't have to pay taxes on it, right? Or you can actually transfer the money to the beneficiaries, and that also doesn't trigger a taxable event. So you won't be taxed on that transfer. So now you can do all of your expenses and then transfer whatever is left to your private family trust. Once it's in your private family trust, you're going to be spending the money for your livelihood, right? So that's where your mortgage is going to come out, your life insurance, your kids' tuition, gas, car note, all of that stuff is going to come out of your private family trust. And what you can do at that point is you can expend it down to zero, right? If 100,000 came in, you spent 100,000 and you can't be taxed on zero, okay? Or what you can do is, let's just say that 100,000 came in and you spent 90. There's 10 that's left, right? You can actually donate that 10,000 to your tax exempt trust. And then now you would have a zero tax liability for the private family trust. And these types of trusts, they actually they file a 1041, which is a separate trust, a separate tax filing than you as an individual. You as an individual, you file a 1040 and the trust files a 1041 because it's seen as a totally separate individual in the IRS's eyes, okay? So like I said, 100 came in, you spent 90, there's 10 left. What do you do with the 10? You donate it. You donate it to your tax exempt trust. And then at that point in time, once you donated it, then you have a zero tax liability. So now that 10,000 is in your tax exempt trust. Other names for the tax exempt trust is ministry trust, is 508c1a, designated trust, is church, convention, faith-based organization. There's so many different names for it, right? And no, it's not religious based, right? It's faith-based, right? And your faith could be in anything. So just keep that in mind. And this type of trust is the only exception to actually the 501c3, right? So with a 501c3, all the nonprofits have to apply for the 501 to be tax exempt. The only exception to applying for the 501 is if you are structured as a trust and designated as a 508, then you don't need to apply for tax exempt status. You are automatically exempt, which means that you do not have to file any federal taxes at all, not required. And you do not have to provide any of your financials, any of your QuickBooks, your bookkeeping, your accounting, all that stuff. You don't have to do any of that stuff, right? So it is very beneficial if you're running a nonprofit for you to run it as a 508 versus a 501.
Like that. That's stuff that you won't see in the private unless you don't notice.
Can you mute,
keep
please?
things in the private, that's in the private. If you're dealing with your social, birth certificates, stuff like that, that's public. You're dealing with businesses, that's public.
Sorry about that, guys. Okay, so okay, back to what I was saying. So with a 501c3, you actually have restrictions, right? One, you have to apply for it. Two, they restrict your freedom of speech. So as a nonprofit, you don't want to have to go down that route, right? So if you're a nonprofit, then you want to go down the route of having a trust entity and being a 508, okay? So that's as far as structure goes. So now let's talk about like credit and funding and all this other stuff, right? So basically what you can do, like we said, is with the business trust, you can actually not accumulate, well, you can apply for business credit, right? So you could build business credit with this type of entity, right? So just like a human being or just like a business, this trust, what you're going to do is you're going to go down to Dun and Bradstreet, you're going to get a DUNS number, you're going to start applying for your net 30 accounts and generate a paydex score, and then you can start, building up from there and getting your credit cards and your line of credit and things of that nature. You can also be a personal guarantee if that's what you choose to, or you don't, you can just let the entity do its own thing. And once it's, seasoned, then it'll be at a point where it's, corporate credit and you don't have to have that co-signer. With the tax exempt trust, you can actually qualify for nonprofit grants, right? There are several different grants out here. Every single grant, not every single grant, but there's certain grants that do want you to have the certificate for the 501, but there's others that don't require it. And so with those nonprofit grants, you are eligible to apply for those grants, right? So once you have the credit, once you have the grants, then it's time to invest, okay? So like I said, there's an economic crisis that, might be emerging. We don't know, right? And so the types of investments that I recommend is 1, your insurance policy, and 2, real estate, right? So your insurance policy is liquid, you guys. Like, you can get your money out like as quickly as you need it to, right? They will direct deposit the money right into your bank account. So you want to safeguard your money and pretty much have it in your insurance policy or other types of bank accounts that provide more insurance versus, the 250K from the FDIC. Okay, so let's talk about insurance, right? I know that you guys have heard of the terminology infinite banking, private money banking, all of that stuff is super important. And so when it comes to trust, when it comes to insurance, they're a perfect pair. Why? Because you are going to put yourself in a position to where you're going to be paying yourself first. And the way that you do that is by whatever's coming in, right? So let's just say that, that you made $20,000 today, right? What you're going to do is the trust is going to take out an insurance policy, okay? And the trust is going to take out that insurance policy on every single member of the trust, right? Every person dealing with the trust. So the trustee and all of the beneficiaries, right? And every single beneficiary that comes after that, right? This is where you put yourself in a position to where you are preserving your wealth, right? Because we're building the wealth and we're investing, but we also need to preserve the wealth as well, right? And so insurance is actually supposed to be used when you are living, not when you die, right? So the way that you use it is by paying yourself first. So the trust took out a policy on you. You are the insured. The trust is the owner of the policy as well as the beneficiary of the policy, okay? The trust is the person or the entity that pays the premium monthly, quarterly, annually, however you determine, okay? So now you have a policy, and the type of policy, this can work with a whole life policy or other types of policies, but the one that I like the most is the Index Universal Life Insurance Policy. That's the policy that I have for me and mine. So with this type of policy is actually tied to or mirrors the market, right? So it mirrors an index. You choose whichever index. right? You have the NASDAQ, you have the Dow Jones, you have the S&P 500. So it actually mirrors the index, right, in the market. And so you actually get higher returns. With a whole life, you're probably going to get like 4% annually. With the index universal life, you can probably get up to like 10, 11, 12%, right? I think they max you out at 12, right? So with that being said, you're going to get higher returns on, annually with this type of policy, okay? And if, let's just say that the market is down and is not doing so hot, the less that you can get is zero, right? So that means that there's really no risk involved, because there's no risk with zero, right? You're just not going to earn for that, that particular time period. But you're usually going to get, higher returns. The market usually does 8 to 10. So you're going to get around 8 to 10, right? So now you're going to pay yourself first. Like I said, you made $20,000 today. What you're going to do is you are going to pay your premium, the $20,000. You're going to make a payment for $20,000, right? And that's going to build up your cash value, right? So with this type of policy, it builds cash value, and that cash value then actually earns the interest, right? And then it also has the death benefit, right? So once you die, you get a sum or accumulation of both, of the cash value and the death benefit, right? So you deposited that $20,000 into your insurance policy. Your cash value went up by $20,000. Now you're going to contact them, let them know you want a loan, a disbursement loan, and they're going to loan you back the $20,000. So they do a direct deposit into your bank account. At that point in time, now you get to pay your bills, right? So typically we get paid, and then we pay our mortgage, our utilities, our groceries, and then whatever's left over is what we use to save. That's the wrong way of doing things. So you need to actually pay yourself first. So once you get paid, instead of you paying your mortgage and your grocery, you're going to park that money, every single dollar, into your insurance policy. And then you're going to borrow it back out after they deposit it into your bank account in a day. And then you're able to pay your mortgage and your utilities and your groceries. So that's what I mean by paying yourself first, okay? So now with that loan, they are actually, your insurance policy is an asset. You have to understand that, right? It's an asset. Most banks, they are invested in insurance policies, okay? So if the banks are doing it, if Wells Fargo and Chase is doing it, you need to be doing it too, okay? So it is an asset. With that being said, the insurance company, that's the way they look at it. So that's why they're going to lend you the $20,000, because this asset is worth that at that time. They're lending you the $20,000 from their own money, not from your policy. They don't touch that $20,000 from your policy. So that $20,000 is still in your policy, and it's still working, and it's still earning the 10% or 9%, whatever it's going to earn, mirroring the market. And you are now being issued a loan from the insurance company's money, which is good. You might as well, right? And so you can decide if you want to pay that money back. And if you decide that you don't want to pay the money back, then it's just going to be taken out of your death benefit, which is good. You don't have to pay them back. If you want to obviously accumulate more cash value, then you're going to pay it back, right? And with that being said, because it's a loan, they are going to charge you interest. Usually it's low, like 2 to 3%, right? So if you are making 10 in your policy and you took out a loan for 2, then you're going to average 8, okay? So that's what I mean by paying yourself first and tapping into that infinite banking. That is like super important, right? It's very important, one, to take out a policy for yourself and to obviously be your own bank and do it this way. You have to understand that with your trust, You have, physical assets like the cars and the houses. You got the monetary assets, which is the cash in the bank. And then you have human assets, which is you and your beneficiaries. So if you guys are human assets and the trust now lost that human asset, the trust needs to be paid. So in the event that you expire, that money from your death benefit, right, from your death benefit and the cash value, it is going to go to the trust because the trust is the beneficiary. So that money is going to be sent from the insurance policy to the trust. Now the trust just came up on $2 million. So what is the trust going to do? Go and invest in real estate, invest in crypto, invest in stocks, do other types of investment. It's going to flip that $2 million, right? So that is vitally important that you incorporate insurance into your wealth building formula, okay? And then real estate is, is super duper important. It's tangible, it's something that's, it's indestructible, okay? And especially during these economic times where your dollar bill is probably going to be worthless, you want to hold on to tangible assets like precious metal, like real estate that, they are going to maintain their value, okay? So let me give you a strategy for real estate, right? So let's just say that you have an investment property. That investment property has a tenant. That tenant is giving you $1,000 a month, right? So the investment property is owned by the ministry trust. The ministry trust qualifies for property tax exemption, right? So now it's going to be exempt from taxes, and that tenant is actually considered a member of your faith-based organization, right? So because they're a member of your faith-based organization, then their monthly contributions, which is their quote unquote rent that they're giving you on the first of every single month, that is their donation, right? That's their donation. And so that that income is actually not considered income. That is considered a donation from one of your members. Okay, so that's one strategy that you can use in order to build wealth and not be subject to heavy taxations. Okay. So how do you transfer the wealth, right? I know you guys heard this term, own nothing but control everything. And it's such a valuable, a valuable statement. Why? Because you do not want to own nothing. Owning something is a liability. Everything that you do ends up in the public records. So for example, if you own a property, right? Let's just say, a house. Anybody in your anybody can go to your county website, do a property search, put in the property address, your name is going to pop up as the owner. Or vice versa, they can put your name, and then every single property that you own in that county is going to show up. So that is a liability, and you now become a low-hanging fruit for these lawyers, right? So you don't want to be in that position. So you want stewardship versus ownership. Stewardship is when you have full control over your assets while you are on this earth, while you're living and breathing, right? That's all you really care about, right? That you can dispose of your property however you want and nobody's telling you what to do. But as far as you actually being the owner on paper with your personal name, that's not a good look. Okay. So how do you transfer your wealth? Like I told you, once the trust is terminated or dissolves, then all those properties go to the beneficiaries. But how do you determine that? So you have what we call units of beneficial interest, UBIs, or the other name for it is TCUs. So trust certificate units are just like stock certificates. Okay, so if you buy stocks with Apple, you own a piece of Apple. It's the same thing with the trust. If you have trust certificate units, you have beneficial interests within the trust. And once the trust is dissolved, you get to own some of these properties or assets, okay? So your trust is going to actually create 100 TCUs, right? And these TCUs are now going to be dispersed to your beneficiaries. So let's just say that you have 5 beneficiaries. Then at that point, you're going to, if you wanted to be equal, you're going to issue out 20 trust certificate units to each beneficiary. So now all 5 of those individuals have equal interest in the trust, right? So let's just say that a beneficiary didn't want to be a part of the trust anymore. So all they have to do is turn in their trust certificate units to the trustee. And then at that point in time, whatever is equivalent to that value of the 20 trust certificate units, they have to get it at that time. Meaning that let's just say you had 100 houses. At that time, 20 of those homes need to be deeded over to that beneficiary that is now exiting the trust, right? And then those 20 units are absorbed by the trust, and then you get to redistribute them, okay? So that is what, that's what's going to put you in the position to where that's how you're going to be transferring your wealth, right? You're going to be transferring your wealth through these trust entities. Everything is going to be owned by the trust, and your loved ones are going to be the beneficiary, and you're going to be the trustee, which is the owner and operator of the trust, right? If you were to say that there was an owner, right? So these are the books that I recommend. What Would the Rockefellers Do? The Art of Passing the Buck, Volume 1 and 2, Family Wealth, and The Complete Book of Trust. Those are really good books, and they're going to get you, jump started on how it is to be a trustee, what are the actual strategies, like what the Rockefellers do, right? They do exactly what I have described, which is they take out an insurance policy on every single beneficiary and all of their kids and descendants. And this thing is just going to go on for generations and generations because the trust is continuously being replenished by the death benefits, right? And one thing I forgot to tell you about the death benefits is that it is not subject to estate tax, inheritance tax, and death tax, right? So if you have an insurance policy and you are the owner or the beneficiary, right, of that policy, or you have your kids as the beneficiary of that policy, when you die, instead of that whole entire death benefit going to your child, it's going to be subject to the estate tax, the death tax, the inheritance tax. And then they get what's left over after the policy. But if the policy is under a trust, then you don't get taxed because it's not a human person, right? So, so take action on the information that I provided tonight, you guys. Like I gave you guys a wealth of information as far as what a trust is, what types of trust, how to set it up, how to operate it, where to put your, investments from the trust funds, things of that nature, right? And your trust is your new form of doing business and making a profit. It can solve a lot of your problems and provide you with exceptional asset protection and tax savings, right? Like you will reduce your tax liability down to zero. And I think that that's what a lot of us want to do, right? So you have to treat your trust like it's a Google, a Facebook, a Amazon, a big Fortune 500 company. Because that's what it is, right? You have to operate it that way. You have to treat it that way. You have to see it that way. And then that's when, that's when you're going to grow it. And that's how it's going to prosper, right? Okay. So, here's my contact information. If you guys have any questions, I'm going to start answering questions now. But you can text or call this number at any time. You can go to thewealthytrustee.com. If you, that's where we have our course. And then if you have if you want to write us an email, social media, any of that stuff, you can do that. Okay. So let's definitely work together. If you guys are interested in any of the stuff that I said, I do have a course. It's a do-it-yourself course. It has 40 video modules teaching you guys how to set up your trust, how to operate your trust, how to transfer all of your assets, how to do all of these different types of investments that I mentioned. You have lifetime access to it. It has a bunch of resources as far as your tax documents, as far as the board meeting minutes that you have to do, which people just don't do meetings for their entities, right? Everything that you need, all kind of resources, ebooks, all kind of stuff is also in the online portal. And then we also have a community aspect as well on Facebook. So all of that is $9.97 if you guys are interested. And if you want a one-on-one, we can do it together, right? Me and you, we can be on Zoom. It's a series of 5 Zoom calls, unlimited questions and answers. You get lifetime access to the course, and you're going to set up your trust the right way, right? And so I hold your hand through the whole entire process, and that is $14.97. So you guys can go to thewealthytrustee.com if you are interested in setting up your trust so that you go start building generational wealth the right way, start protecting your assets, and start being tax exempt. So I'm going to open up the floor to any questions. And then what I wanted to do was I wanted to show you guys what a sample trust looks like. Let's see here. All right, guys, so this is what a trust looks like. So all the stuff that you see in red is pretty much things that you're going to fill out. When it comes to this template, this one is over 52 pages. So this is what a trust indenture and declaration looks like. So I'll just really go through this real quick. So it has like all the bylaws, you pretty much have all of your rules, your regulations. And so in the course, we go through each paragraph because you have to understand what's in the trust in order for you to operate the trust, right? It's just super important. A lot of people, they have trust, they don't even know what's inside the trust and they don't know how to operate the trust. And so they can't even take advantage of having a trust because they don't know what to do with it. Right? So it's important for you to know every single last thing that's in this trust, okay? So after you're done filling in everything that's in red, then you are going to get it notarized. You, the grantor, you guys are going to get it notarized. You're going to fill out your Schedule A. Your Schedule A is where they're actually going to create the trust certificate units, right? So you're going to exchange a $1 bill and the trust is going to create the trust certificate units and give it and hand it to the trustee, right? So that needs to be notarized, and then you actually distributing the trust certificate units to the beneficiaries, right? So there's several different sections within a trust that you need, right? And when you are actually creating the trust, I highly recommend that you actually notarize 2 original copies, right? Because you never know what might happen. So you don't want to only have 1 copy and then your trust is destroyed, right? You want to have 2 originals and you just safeguard them in 2 separate locations, right? So this here is the course if you guys are interested. So you go through the trust entity. So what is, what's a trust? What's the benefit of it? Who are the parties?
So much easier.
Who are the parties involved? You go through the declarations, the bylaws, the Schedule A, how to apply for an EIN for the different types of trust. We go through tax strategies, asset protection, right? You take an inventory of your asset, and then you start either transferring assets or creating assets, right? So you learn all of that stuff here in the program. Okay, guys. So I am going to answer any
We just pay our
questions.
$1,400.
Yeah. Do you have a question? I hear that you're off of mute. Hello? All right, so I am opening up the floor for any questions. Does anybody have any questions?
Yes, I got a question.
Hello, hi,
Hello.
Minister, what is it? Kemet?
Kim's son.
Kemet-san, okay, how are you?
Yes. I'm doing fine. How you doing?
I'm doing really good. Thank you for asking.
My question would be over the holding company.
Yeah.
Because I seen on the post where you were saying about the holding company about having the holding company over your companies and having your trust fund over the holding company. Could you break that down some if you don't mind, please?
Yeah, so were you on the beginning of the call?
No, I wasn't on the beginning. I came
Okay.
in late.
All right, no problem. So
I didn't know both meetings was at the same time almost. I didn't know they was running at the same time. I thought, one meeting was gonna go and then you was gonna come on.
Oh, I'm
And I was like,
sorry.
man, she passed her time, so I ended up hitting the link, the other link that was sent out, and I came on. So yeah, I came on late.
Oh, okay, no problem. So I actually show people like my structure. So I want to show it to you briefly and then I can go ahead and answer your question, okay?
Okay.
All right. So the way that I described in the video, that's how I'm structured, okay? So let me go. So I have a real estate investment company, okay? And that company is a high liability company. I don't know if you know this, but in the industry, real estate is considered risky. Did you know that?
It is. Yeah,
Okay,
I know that.
perfect. Okay, yeah, so you up on game. Okay, so I have a risky business, okay? So here is my real estate investment company. It's called Elite Homes Enterprise, okay? So if I scroll down to the bottom, it's a LLC. So here the authorized member is Urban Holdings, Inc. Okay, so that's the owner of the LLC, okay?
Right.
All right, so now we're gonna go to Urban Holdings. So this is obviously my Secretary of State's website over here in Florida. So now I'm gonna go to Urban Holding Inc. This is an S corporation, okay? So if I scroll down to the bottom, right, you can see me as a registered agent, but just ignore that. So if I scroll down to the bottom, you see who the CEO is?
It say name and address, it title CEO, but where
Right here.
who's it saying? Oh, Ways to Wealth.
Exactly. What do you think that is?
Would that be a nonprofit?
It's a trust.
Oh, it's a trust. Okay.
Yes. So
Yeah.
you see how I'm not listed as the owner. The owner is a trust
Right.
of the
Gotcha.
holding company. Okay.
Right.
So your holding company, it could be whoever you want it. It could be any type of entity, right? Your holding company could be a S corporation, it could be a LLC, or it could be a trust.
Yeah.
So if you
I have a holding that's a LLC.
Oh, you do? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So the whole point of a holding company is to actually, own own another entity, right? So it's a parent corporation, it's an umbrella company, and it owns other companies, right? And so what it's doing is it's actually is acting as, asset protection, okay? So all of the money from those subsidiaries that it owns is supposed to flow up to the holding company, okay? So 100% of whatever the LLC makes goes straight to the holding company. And then at that level, you can send it straight to that owner, right? So the money is just flowing up from the LLC to the holding company to the trust. Okay, so that's how it's working. And with the holding company, that's its own duties, right? I talk to other people and they have the name holding in it, but they're not operating it like a holding company.
Right, because I was going to tell you, not to cut you off, I was going to tell you when you finish how I operate mine to see if that's legit.
Okay, so so what do you do with your holding company?
Okay, so let me tell you my whole machine on how I do it, because my holding company is actually the last thing. Like after my trust fund pays its bills, I kick the money to the to my capital holdings, and my holdings companies are what makes the investments for my trust fund. And then with my holdings company, I'm using the 13th rule on that, to where you let it sit, and then on the 13th month, it's tax free. And any money that you got going through your holdings company is basically, the money that you bring back into your trust fund goes right back into your holding company to make investments.
Okay, so how is it connected to your trust? Is the
So
trust the owner, or how does that work?
no, how I was doing it was, so my LLC, I have my LLC. So I have a limited partnership company as well. So I once the money come in from my LLCs, I pay its bills and send everything over to my limited partnership company. My limited partnership company pays all its bills, and the limited partnership companies will own all the assets to my corporation. And once it goes through my limited partnership company, it goes down to my trust fund. And then once the trust fund pays its bills, which is, mortgage, rent, and everything like that. So the money that's left over, I kick that to my holdings company. That's how I do it. But I know you do
Okay,
it different.
so so does that work for you? Because if it works for you, then it does. So my question is, how does the money flow from your trust to your holding company? Is it a beneficiary? Is your holding company a beneficiary?
No,
Okay. So then what position does it have in the trust? It doesn't have any
it
position.
doesn't have any position
So
in the
how
trust.
are you able to pay the holding company?
I just actually I just send the money from my trust account to my holdings account.
Okay, but there needs to be like a whole paper trail. So your holding company needs to actually provide some type of service in order for your trust to pay it. Your trust just can't do a distribution with no paper trail, with no
Okay, got
type
you.
of connection.
Got you. Yeah, okay. So
Okay.
I thought I had it thinking that was the connection.
No, it doesn't sound like that. Like if your holding company is not a party within your trust, then then you have to have some type of service. So your trust has to hire your holding company for something. But if your trust hires your holding company, then that means that your holding company is operating like a business and not like a holding company, because a holding company doesn't have products or services. So
Exactly.
that flow is
Yeah.
it's a
Cause
little
cause cause
funny.
cause my capital hold, I mean, my holdings company, it don't have products or services. You know what I'm saying? It strictly is used to make um investments for the nonprofit.
Yeah, I understand that. So you operating it like it's a holding company, but the money that is flowing into it should not be flowing into it because there's no correlation between the two.
Right. So what about
So
if I
you
made
got,
that capital holdings company, if I made my trust fund the owner of
if
the holding company?
then you're good to go. Then
Right.
you're good to go, but then the flow has to be different because the owner doesn't flow money to the entity. The entity flows money to the owner.
Right. Okay.
So you got to fix it, but it's fixable.
Right.
Yeah.
So your way is doing it, having the trust on the holdings, and then the holdings on the LLCs.
Right. The LLCs, your LLPs, all those things.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I have my my name LLC, and it's owned by my trust, and my name LLC owns some of my companies, and then some of them we're own. I mean, the trust fund is owning them outright.
Okay. I mean, that works too. Like some your trust could own the companies outright. It doesn't need the in between. It doesn't need a holding company, right?
Right.
That structure doesn't work for everybody, right? It's kind of complex. And so if you don't need a separate entity that's a holding company, then just make your trust your holding company. That
And
works
then
too.
can I get funding with the holding company since it got an EIN?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's fundable as long as you make it fundable.
And the LP.
Yeah, of course. What do you have with it? You have an EIN too?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can build business credit with any entity. You can build
Right.
with a sole prop, you can build with anything.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I got you.
All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Minister. Thank you for being on here.
I wish I could have came early because I really wanted to hear you drop your gems.
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna send you the recording. Do I have your I think I might have your email. Yeah, if you registered, then I have your email probably. Or you could just shoot me your email and then I'll send you the recording.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Be blessed. Thank you. Do I have any other questions? Anybody want to come off of mute? Let me see. It says, thanks for the presentation. Thank you for the wonderful information. This is deep. That could be deductible as a business expense, correct? I'm not sure what you mean by that. Olga? Let me see. Kurt, you have a question? You could come off mute.
How you doing?
Hey, Kurt, how are you?
I'm blessed. I can't complain.
Perfect.
I was just basically I joined your I actually signed up for the trust and everything.
Okay, perfect.
So I was just wondering, all I have to do is just book the first appointment with you or whatnot?
Yep, book your first Zoom call. You have the link. You should have got it in your email.
Okay, okay, I gotta check my email. Okay.
Okay. All right, sounds
All
good.
right.
I'm looking forward to our one-on-one.
Definitely. Thank you so much. I
You're
appreciate that.
so welcome, Kurt. Thank you for joining.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Anybody else have any questions? It says, how can I get the recording? I didn't register. I received the link through Dion. All right, let's see here. Okay, so if you text your email to my community number, I'm just gonna put my community number on here. If you text your email, I will send you the recording tonight. So the number is 305-749-9215. I'm putting it in the chat right now. And as soon as this recording is over, I'll go ahead and send out emails so that you guys could have the recordings, okay?
Can I ask a question since ain't
Yes.
nobody asked no questions?
Right, yeah.
I got some.
All right, go for it. Go for it. Somebody got to have
Okay.
questions.
All right. So I also seen where you were saying that so my revocable trust is the family trust, and then irrevocable is the business. And then I'm putting together my ministry trust now.
Okay, good.
So you were saying your business trust, the beneficiary, that should be the family trust.
Yeah.
Player on the field, man off the field, man or
Okay.
God.
So
Surreal. I'm just
and then
Hold
what
on.
would be the benefit?
I have to mute
my
somebody.
son, his determination has paid off.
Mute. Okay, there we go. All right, I can hear you now. I'm sorry. You said what's the benefit of what?
Okay, so who the beneficiary of the family trust? Does they go to the irrevocable trust?
So typically the family trust, that's, where you hold in all your assets. And so that's the beneficiary is whoever you want to get those assets once the trust is dissolved. So is that your kids? Do you have kids? Do you have siblings, parents, anybody? Who do you want to ultimately have the assets?
I want my assets to stay in my trust fund.
Okay. All right. So,
I don't want nobody to have control of them.
okay. So
I want my trust to be controlled.
Okay. So who do you want to benefit from the trust and from the assets?
Because can I name my beneficiary a trust fund in a person?
Yeah,
or
you
in a
can.
business? Because ain't them
Yeah.
all same one?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can. So whoever you want, right? Whoever you
Right.
want. So if you
So the
want,
benefits, they can get the cash advance, they can get the cash money off of it, that I get them, but that like what I would call allowance from the trust fund, but owning the assets, I don't want them doing none of that.
right, exactly. But you have to understand that your trust has a termination date, and I mean the trust is going to outlive you, so you never know what's going to happen. So you just have to
Right.
make sure that whoever is operating your trust after you're gone, that they renewed the trust, right? And
Right. Oh yeah, for sure. On that 25-year rule.
exactly. So you never
Right.
know, right? You never know, because the trust, it could be dissolved, right? And then at that point
Right.
in time, it's going to go to the beneficiaries.
Right. Gotcha.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah,
But that's your trustee duty to make sure when that 25 roll around that they
exactly,
handle their business.
exactly.
Right.
That's true. That's true. It's a must.
So do the trust the
And it could
man, I
be
can't
long,
think.
it could be longer than 25 years. So I'm not sure why you put 25 years.
Right.
It could be longer, it
Okay.
could be 100 years.
Mm. But whoever when they get to that 100
Right.
down the generations, whoever it
Right.
is.
It's gonna be three
Right.
generations down the line. It's like,
Right. Okay.
yeah. But
Gotcha.
I mean, other families are doing it, right? The Rockefellers are doing it. A bunch of other families are doing it. They already, surpassed that 100 years. A
So
lot,
does the
a lot
trust
of, a
compliance
lot of them.
officer deal with that?
Say that again.
So do the trust compliance officer is the one who makes sure that those years is updated, or that go fall in the trustee hands? Because ain't the compliance officer making sure everything is in order?
Yeah, I mean, it has to, so ultimately it's up to the trustee to renew it, but anybody who's a part of the board, they can just, make sure that that happens.
Right. Okay. Gotcha.
Yep, absolutely.
So you wouldn't on your family trust, you didn't mention another trust or a business. You mentioned children. Can you tell me why?
Yeah, because like that's just the structure that I chose because I have 3 kids, and
Right.
so in the event that the trust is dissolved, right? In the event that it is dissolved, then I want it to go to the children because at some point in time you have to list the children. It's like where are you going to put them?
Right.
Are you not going to list them?
I mean, I was if they was going to be listed as beneficiaries, I was going to do it to their company, to the name LLC
Okay.
of them.
I mean, that's a whole nother strategy. So, I mean, you definitely running your trust, the way that you want. And you have to understand as the trustee, you have full discretion.
Exactly.
Look at you with that
You
big
know,
smile. So yeah, you have
to move in to make
but
sure
that
we
sounds
moving in
good.
commerce. To
Right.
making sure.
But now my question is, what if they don't have a business right now? Like my child is 3 years old. She don't got no business right now, and I don't know what the name of her business is gonna be.
Right,
And
but one of them should be her name LLC, and that's controlled and operated by the trust, which is controlling, So as they grow up into that, you know what I'm saying, they name LLC is making money as they grow at 3. They can be a business owner. You know what I mean? They
yeah,
might not controlling their business, you know what I'm saying, but they definitely got one in their name to where everything that they do is in commerce and not a consumer.
yes,
That's the ways I'm moving on commerce on
right.
everything.
Right. I know. It sounds very strategic. Very strategic. So I love that. So I'm not there yet where I have an LLC for each of my children. I'm not there yet. But if and when, then that sounds like a good strategy, to be honest with you.
Right. I mean, it's a win-win. That's another way of accumulating funds.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I just I'm in motion with a little bit other things. So, I'm controlling everything.
I know. Yeah, I know. I've been told too. I've been told because like with my kids, I have a YouTube channel for them. So I've already been instructed to do that. So I'm with you. I like the way you moving. So thank you for dropping some gems for me.
Thank you. So who would be the beneficiary of your ministry trust?
So it's just a charity. So it's whoever you want. So mine's is a charity.
Right, of course. Right. Right.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay, understood.
Yes,
Understood.
yes.
So your different trusts got different beneficiaries.
They all do.
Right.
None of them got the same beneficiaries.
Gotcha. That's right though. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? That's right. Okay.
Yeah.
I have a
Gotcha.
question.
All right, I'm with you. Who's speaking? I don't even know who's speaking.
Kurt.
Oh, hey, Kirk, what's up? How are you?
Good. So when you do the when you help out with the ministry, do you show how to do it from a ecclesiastical ministry aspect?
Yeah, so it has so I basically go through like all the contents of the actual like ministry trust, but like what you're saying right now, is it like to set up a church? Is that what you're saying?
Right. From that perspective.
No, so I have the steps, but like me, I haven't set up a church. So I can't show anybody how to set up a church. So I have it from a standpoint of like a faith-based organization, like how they could, operate it on whatever faith that they are in. But I do have the resources for you because a lot of my clients, they do set up, churches and ministries and stuff like that.
Well, just not that I'm a pastor, just for the benefits of it. You got it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's the same though. It's the same. The names are interchangeable. So it's
Okay.
ministry trust, FBO, church. But
Got you.
it depends on how you operate in it. So some people operate it with church. Some people have a church. So are you gonna open up a church?
No, I'm just gonna use the benefits of it.
Okay, so it sounds like you're probably gonna run either a ministry or a faith-based organization, not a church.
Right. Just tax reasons, you get it. You got it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's how I run it too.
Okay, cool.
That's how I run mine.
All right, so I'm on point with it. All right, so I'm gonna be reaching out for sure.
All right, I'm gonna talk to you soon, Kurt.
Yes, ma'am. You sure will.
All right.
Right.
So Latoya said, hello, I am not able to get insurance myself. Can I take it out on my children? And if yes, how old do they need to be? So as far as like the insurance goes, I think the minimum is like 15 days old. So yes, if you want to run the play with the private money banking with your insurance policy and you're not able to get a policy, then you want to put an IUL policy or whole life or whatever policy you decide to go with. You want to put it for your children and then you can run the play that way, right? You can actually pay yourself first through your children's policy because your children's policy is going to be owned by your trust and the beneficiary is going to be your trust. So you can use their policies because you already know they're young and they don't even do like health. I think it depends on the age too, but I know like for my little ones, they didn't even do any type of health screening or anything because they're just so young. So yeah, you could definitely use their policy. They are going to be the insured, but your trust is going to be the owner, and so you can do everything that you would, if you had a policy. Hey Corey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing really good. You have a question?
Yeah, we have a meeting tomorrow, actually.
Yeah, I know. It's at 1:00. What's
Yeah,
your time zone?
I'm Eastern.
Okay, me too.
Is it a Zoom call or is it just a phone call? I wasn't sure.
Oh, It's whatever you want it to be. Do you want it to be a Zoom call?
Nah, it'd be easier if it's a phone call tomorrow.
Okay, cool. It's a phone call.
All right, cool. Because I saw like the time, but I didn't see a Zoom link. So I'm like, is it a Zoom call? Is it a phone call? What are we doing?
It's a phone call. It's a phone
All right.
call.
It was always a phone call. You just saying
It
that?
was always a phone call.
Oh yeah, you got jokes. Okay, cool. So my question for you is, I have a couple questions, and I'll ask some of them tomorrow. But
Okay.
one, like I'm asking right now, is like realistically, with your experience, how long does it take to set up these 3 trusts? Like with the done with you service, which I'm supposed to be signing up for, but I want to ask my questions tomorrow to get
Yeah.
more.
Okay, that sounds good. So you're setting up these trusts, right? Like a trust could be set up in like 1-2 hours, but you have to have all of the, all of the little details, right? Like what are you going to name your trust? Who are the beneficiaries going to be? If you have all of that stuff already, determined, then it's going to be a quick process. Like per trust, I would say it will take probably an hour and a half to 2 hours. Per trust. So we just do it in a series of Zoom calls. So we'll just do 1 Zoom call per trust.
Okay. And then you, as part of the done for you service or as a separate consult, you help us to figure out the things that we can do with these trusts once we have them set up, correct? Like you offer that as a separate service?
So are you talking about like the investments, or what are you talking about? Or
I'm
are
talking
you
about the
talking about like
credit,
operating
I'm
the
talking
trust?
about the insurance, I'm talking about, any and everything that is available to me. I want to at least be made aware of it, and then how to move out on it.
Yeah.
Whatever that.
Yeah, so we do that together. So like I give you my personal partners for the insurance, and so they'll set you up with a policy. I'll give you my partners for the business funding, but we actually, establish your trust business credit together. So we do the Dun and Bradstreet, like get your DUNS number. We do all of that together. And then from there, so we get you all set up, but obviously this is an ongoing thing. And so you just go back to the online portal for any other resources that you might need.
Okay. I was on obviously the call, I'm in Dion's group and I met you last week virtually.
Yes, I remember.
Yeah. So for me, yeah, there's a lot of, I'm glad that you offer the one-on-one conversation, the call, because it allows us to get personal and kind of get into some other stuff that I won't say here in the public right now. But I definitely have some other thoughts on things. And what if you don't have any trustees that you wanna put in place? Then what is there are there trustees for hire that does this for business?
Yeah, it's called general trust manager. So you can hire a general trust manager to be your trustee. You can
Okay.
hire somebody if you
And
don't
they're super
have.
thorough at like doing this and all of
Yeah,
that.
I mean, every single company is different. So I haven't gone through that experience. I just know that it exists. Like my brokerage, Fidelity, they will operate in a fiduciary capacity and be your trustee. So like you can, you will have to do your due diligence when it comes to that. But yes, you can hire a third party to be your trustee. But
Now
then you want to appoint somebody to be your protector to watch your trustee.
got it. And the rabbit hole goes deeper. I also recognize that a trust can be very in depth in terms of the language, in terms of the rules, in terms of all of that, right? So we start with just the basic foundation with you and the overall knowledge, and then you help us build on it from there,
Yes,
basically.
yeah, and I give you a lot of resources, like I said, like some of the ebooks that come with the program, they're like $750. So like you want to, you know, also do your own studying. Cause like I said, like right now the program is only like 40 videos, right? But I'm always adding more resources. So that's why you want to, you know, go down, like you said, like your rabbit hole and learn more. So you want to study the contents in these ebooks. You want to also like even look at like case law when it comes to like trust, right? See different trusts that were sued and what, you know, what their outcome was, things like that, because those are also learning experiences. But the resources that I have included in the program is really going to get you like up, running, and operating efficiently.
And then I can move whatever assets I have into my trust. And do you, I'm assuming in the teaching, you show us that part too, how to do that, how to start moving vehicles.
Yeah,
and,
I even provide you with the quick claim deeds for every, you know, every single state. So what state are you in?
Pennsylvania.
Okay, so in the program, you're gonna have you just gonna download the quick claim deeds for Pennsylvania. And you're gonna plug it in. So if you have a property, right, or whatever assets you are transferring, right? So like if you have an insurance policy, then we'll do that whole process together, contacting your insurance company, getting the paperwork involved, you know, and you filling it out to where you're transferring the ownership, right? So like me, I'm your accountability partner. I'm going to make sure that you actually get it done, because like I've been, you know, doing trust. I've been a trustee since 2015, been in these like secret communities and stuff like that. And like I see it all the time where people, they have trust and they don't transfer anything into it, or they too scared, or they just don't know how to operate it. And it's just, it's very disappointing. So I make sure that my clients actually do it. They have to actually fill out an asset inventory list. So you're going to list out all your assets and we're going to get the ball rolling.
Okay. And then beyond that, and I'll have a separate set of questions for tomorrow's call.
Good.
But beyond that, what is like, what's available as far as you're concerned? Is it just private consults after that? After we go through the course, after we set up our trust, we do that, then it's just one-on-one calls, like I pay for separate consults, or what's offered regarding that?
Honestly, I don't know. I really don't know. Like I haven't even like charged any of my clients. Like I just help them. Like if it's like 6 months later and they need assistance, it's like, okay, what do you need help with? And so I start, like I was helping a client the other day, and we was going digging through the public records for her grandparents, you know, estate and stuff like that. And that was like a whole 45 minutes. But
Gotcha.
after that, it's just a community. So it's the Facebook community, and really, you know, you being engaged there and asking questions and getting assistance. And, you know, me too, I'm engaged in there. So that's the most important part after you know everything is all said and done. But then you also want to go back into the online portal, because I'm always adding more stuff in there. Like I already have 2 pieces of content that I'm going to add in there next week.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're calling me tomorrow? I'm calling this not 305 number? Or
I'm calling you.
All right, cool. Appreciate it. I'll
All
speak to
right.
you.
All right, Corey. I'm looking forward to it. Can't wait.
Yep, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Does anybody else have any questions? I think
I got another question.
we should use our name. Okay. Yeah, I'm listening.
All right. So, your consultation, your initial consultation, how much are they? Or like, where do I get that at?
So I have the course, and the course is $9.97, and then I have the one-on-one where I help people set up all 3 of the trusts, and that's $14.97.
Okay. So do you have just like in general consultation call?
I don't. You want me to create one for you?
Yep.
Okay.
Cause you got to get information first before you start moving. You know what I'm saying? You
Yeah.
got to stack your deck. Then when your deck stacked, then you move.
Okay. All right, that sounds good. So I will, I'll definitely let you know. I'm gonna talk to you offline, Minister.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
I got one for you.
Yes, what's up?
Hey, Christina. So, say you want to do something with real property or real estate, and maybe you was going to buy 5 homes. Does it make sense to put those homes into one trust, or should you encapsulate them in individual trusts? What do you think?
So it's definitely a personal preference, right? You have to understand that if that one trust is sued, then all of those 5 properties are up for grabs. And then it also depends on the strategy you're using, right? Let's just say that you decided to put those 5 properties, you wanted to put them in the ministry trust and then not have to pay property taxes. With the ministry trust, it only property tax exemption only qualifies for 1 property. So that means that you would have to actually put all 5 of those properties in 5 different ministry trusts. So it depends on your strategy and what you want to do. But if you want it to be simple, then put all of them in 1 trust. If you want it to be a little, if you organized and you want it to be, more safe, then put them in individual trusts. Does that help, or is that just confusing?
I mean, I'm just thinking about the perspective of trying to protect the asset, because essentially generational wealth, protecting assets, passing it on, that's the most meaningful purposes of a trust, in my opinion. So I would just think that encapsulating them in individual trust makes more sense, because if they did sue one, they'll only get the crib that, they sued for, not the other 4 or whatnot.
I agree with
But I understand what you're saying. It is a preference thing, but I think sometimes as teachers, we got to protect the students, or in your case, the clients, when they don't know any better.
Yeah, I do. I agree with you. And that is the best practice. But some people, they don't have the tolerance for having a complex structure. So with those individuals who, who just want to have a trust and for it to be a simple management for them, then they would, the best thing for them would be to put all 5 properties in 1 trust. But like for individuals like me and you, that I have 6 trusts, right? I have 6 trusts, and I'm gonna go open up another one because I'm gonna buy a house in South Carolina. So with that being said, I personally don't mind, but everyone is different, right? You have to think about like your 80-year-old person who, who is now just trying to protect the little 2 houses that they have.
Yeah, I agree. And one more thing, then I can let you know. I was doing some studying, and I ran across this code, which is 8 USC 1101. I was gonna put it in the chat so you can read it. It's actually section 14 of that code. Let me paste it here real quick. But have you come across this in dealing with any trust? Because it's really peculiar. I just posted it there if you can see it.
The term foreign state includes outlying possessions of a foreign state, but self-governing dominions. Hold on, there's something in the way. I don't know what it says after dominions. Wait, territories under mandate or trusteeship shall be regarded as separate foreign states.
What you think about that?
I haven't seen that verbiage, so I can't really talk on it. I know that with our trust, we are, self-governing. So I've seen bits and pieces of it, but not the entire paragraph in its entirety. So I can't speak on the entire paragraph, just only bits and pieces of it.
Fair enough. I like that you don't talk on stuff you don't really know a lot about. Thank you.
Thank you as well. Anybody else have any questions?
Yes, I do.
All righty.
Do anybody else got a question? I don't want to keep, jumping in front of nobody, but it's kind of quiet when she asks. So anybody got a question? If not, I'll ask.
I don't think anybody else have any questions.
Okay.
Go
So cause I have a few trusts, and I set up some irrevocable express trusts to put different like cars and houses in, you know what I mean? That's, my business trust is the beneficiary to those trusts.
Hold on one second. I have to mute somebody. Mute. Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't hear the last part.
I was saying that those business express trusts I got them, to set stuff in, but the beneficiary of those trusts is my business trust. Is that a good move?
Can you say that one more time?
Okay. So let me move my hat. So I got like 2 business express trusts, irrevocable.
Okay. Irrevocable business express trust.
Yes.
Okay.
So, and I got them for that purpose, like you were saying, different stuff to put different in different trust funds, just blocker after block, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
But those trust funds, my original business trust that's really in my lineup is the beneficiary to those trusts. Is that a good move?
Yeah, that sounds good to me. That's how I would do it too. So if you have like, a trust that's just, solely created just to hold those assets, then you can make that the beneficiaries another trust. That's how I would do it. And it sounds like the right way.
Yeah, because those are my because my original lineup is the revocable trust, which is the family trust, then the irrevocable, which is the business trust, the ministry trust, and then I had them going into a foreign situs trust.
Okay.
So, I have my 501c3 complete, and I have the ministry trust is really the last one that's what I'm working on now.
Okay.
So I put my credentials together first, and then now I'm going into the next steps on that.
Are you going to hold assets with that trust?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yes. That
Because
sounds good.
yeah, so you said a while ago that you only allowed to put one trust in the ministry trust.
One
house. I'm sorry, one house.
So no. So you can have multiple houses, but only one of those. So if you decide to have 10 houses in your ministry trust, only one of them are allowed to be tax exempt from property taxes, only one. So that's why it makes more sense for you to have one house per ministry trust, because it doesn't make any sense for you to have the 10 houses under the ministry trust and only one qualifies for being tax exempt.
So you're right. So what about the land? Does the land what does the land consist of? Is that the same type of clause?
Oh, just like raw land without like a property on it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
So you're saying 1 acre to each trust, or you saying,
So it's like per parcel.
Meaning what?
So it's so what do you mean by 1 acre? Like
how many sets of acreage? How many sets of acres can I put in one ministry trust? Is it tied down like you said with the house? You can only get benefit on one house. So what if I got different acre lots? You know what I'm saying?
Right, exactly. So that's what I mean. So per like with property, you have like a parcel number or a folio number. It could have 10 acres, 15, 20 acres. So it's per
Right.
that one folio number.
Okay, but to get another one, you have to do another ministry trust.
Yeah.
So basically, one house and one set of property. I mean, one set of land on it.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I'm sure that's like that with cars too. Then.
Yeah, I mean, cars are high liability, so you definitely don't want to have a car with any other type of asset. Like if you
Right.
have, if you have a car, even if you have 2 and 3 cars, right? Like you want them to be in separate trusts. That's the best practice. But then,
Right.
you have people out here who they don't want the complexity, so they'll put all the vehicles in one trust. But the best thing is
You
to
have
have
to
one
you have to do it
trust.
proper. This is
Yeah.
about doing it proper. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
It's about handling your business proper, making the steps to control and making sure your stuff is protected. That's what we're
Yeah.
talking about,
Yeah.
protection. You know what I'm saying?
I
What's the
agree
use of
with you.
doing all of this? Because I told the person, I said, man, when it's all said and done, man, if you really get into it and try to build your wealth, man, you're gonna have like 20, 25 trusts.
Yeah, it's so true. Yeah, even like I was doing, I was reading up on like the Rockefellers and all these other families and stuff like that. They have like 250, 300 trusts.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously we're going to be right in that alley.
Yeah, because everything you got when you think you're going through that, boom, it's another block. By the time you done paid all this money to take me to court after subpoenaing to pay these people to try to go in one trust, you're going into another one. You know what I'm saying? You're going into another one. When you turn to your left, you're going into another trust. So you're gonna spend a lot of money on trying to get in my documents before we even have a case.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So see you setting up a whole bulletproof, structure there, which is the whole point of using trust, right? So I agree with you. I agree with you.
Gotcha. So would you do that with businesses? That's in your original business trust, which is your irrevocable. Are you putting different businesses in different trusts too?
Yeah, like me, I have it depends on the type of business. Like if you have like just an online business, like your online business and could be under the same trust as another another type of business that's not really like a consulting business or something like that, right? But if you have like a trucking business, you don't want that
Right.
business to be in there with your real estate business and all these,
Right.
if you have a nightclub and a bar and all this stuff, you don't want those to be all up under the same business trust that's a holding company. You don't. It's just too risky. It's just too
Right.
Yeah, especially like those Turo business, people doing Turo out here.
Right.
Exactly.
So is you seeing a lot of people taking trust funds to court and winning? Because this information probably like it protects you, especially if you write that in your trust, right? That this can protect you. This can't what that entity is in this trust don't give you access to my other stuff in here.
Yeah. So no, like I don't see like, I don't see, I see more losses than wins.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
But still though, it's you just never know. It's still to just be safe.
You have to, because people change and your own sibling could want to sue you tomorrow.
Exactly. I don't got nothing though. You know what I'm saying? You can't sue me. You know what I'm saying? You ain't even know the name of these trust funds.
Yeah, exactly. Like
You got to be in a secret society to know them stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
So with all those different trusts, can you get funding for them for the one that's in the public?
I mean, so like you have to understand that like the trust that you want to have it isolated, right? So whatever trust that you decide to get credit with, just have that isolated and don't hold no assets with it, right? So you have
Right.
to use that one trust for that purpose, because it is tying
Right.
it into the public, right? You're gonna have a whole credit profile out here and stuff.
Right.
So you don't want to build credit with all of your trusts. You just only want to choose one and have that trust like not hold any assets. It's just that whole sole purpose is for credit.
For that. Right.
Mhm. Yeah.
Right. Oh, so if you got 2025, man, that just made you like like what, 15 millionaire, 20 millionaire?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Exactly. Yeah. But anyways, guys, so it's late. It's 10:15. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. I really appreciate it. If you guys have any questions, just go ahead and, email me or send me a text to the number that I gave you guys, 305-749-9215. And, you guys be blessed. Thank you so much, and I'll hear from you soon.